The third session is the shift in healthcare AI from CNNs to foundation models, vision language models, and LLMs. So today's panel is going to be one of the most transformative forces shaping the future of healthcare, artificial intelligence. The last few years have seen AI shift from a promising concept to a powerful reality, fundamentally changing the way we approach everything from diagnostics to patient care. This technology is not only enhancing the precision and efficiency of medical practices, but also opening new doors for personalized care, predictive analytics, and equitable healthcare solutions. Today, let's dive into the profound implications of these advancements, exploring both the incredible opportunities AI brings and the challenges it presents. We welcome our panelists now. First, we have Dr. Vasanth Venugopal, Carpal AI. He is our session moderator. Dr. Venugopal is a seasoned cardiologist with over 15 years of experience, known for his pioneering work in integrating AI into radiology. Currently, he serves as the Chief Medical Officer and Clinical Product Lead at Carpal AI, a leading platform for validating and integrating AI solutions in the radiology field. He is also the OG, as I've been told, of AI learning, the original gangster, and we have him here with us today. And I'm sure he'll be ready to share a lot of insights with us. Next, we have Dr. Devsenathipathy Kandasamy from AIIMS. He is a distinguished medical professional, currently serving as a professor at the AIIMS New Delhi. Dr. Kandasamy holds impressive academic research background, having published over 150 indexed publications and delivered more than 100 lectures and CME events and conferences. Our next panelist is Dr. Tarun Kaushik, Fresenius Medical, Fresenius, am I right, sir? Did I mispronounced it a bit? Fresenius, thank you so much. So Dr. Tarun Kaushik is an experienced senior consultant and a medical director at Fresenius Medical Care. Did I get it right, sir? This time? Okay. With a strong background in clinical research, medical education, and healthcare services. With a demonstrated history of working in hospital and healthcare industry, Dr. Kaushik has honed his expertise in delivering high-quality medical care, particularly in the areas of medicine and hospital management. He's asking me to stop every 1 second for a picture. I don't know why. I feel a celebrity. Next, we have Dr. Mrityunjoy Guja Majumdar, Amrita Vishwas Vidyapeetham. Dr. Mrityunjoy is Assistant Professor in the School of Artificial Intelligence at Amrita Vishwa Vidyapeetham, Delhi NCR. He has been Senior Postdoctoral Researcher at the Indian Institute of Science, Bangalore, and a Postdoctoral Associate of Nobel Laureate. Previously, he worked with Ministry of Human Resource Development, Government of India, on competency-based learning, differentiated curriculum, and experiential learning, submitting a report that fed into the formulation of National Education Policy 2020. Our fifth speaker of the day is Dr. Aarti Pavaria, Amrita Hospital. With the few people that we have here, we can still chair for our panelists. They'll still be the same. Dr. Aarti Pavaria is a senior consultant in pediatric gastroenterology and the clinical lead for pediatric hepatology and liver transplantation. She is currently serving at Amrita Hospital, Faridabad. Please give a huge round of applause for all our panelists. This is going to be a very engaging and interesting session. Keep the energy flowing, please. Thank you.
Thank you for the introductions. Hello everyone. Sorry we had to start on time and cut short your coffee. I think that's okay. I hope that's okay. Yeah, we were here last year. We were doing the same session. So I didn't think that in 1 year things would change so drastically. In fact, last year talking about Deva was with me. So we talked about CNNs, radiology, AI platform, and now several meetings that we go, people talk about traditional CNN. Right? That's how things have changed in 1 year. I think ChatGPT was just getting started then. Now everyone knows ChatGPT, everyone knows LLMs, everyone knows foundation models. So things have changed quite rapidly, and it's changing every day, right? If you don't follow the tech news, if you're not following, you will be kind of outdated quite soon. But today we have part of our panel, 4 of us are clinicians, and we have one very interesting personality from future. We are going to talk on what's going to be the future, quantum machine learning. And I don't think people are very aware of what's happening there, what are the potentials. So we'll be talking about that, and then we have Dr. Eva, who is a dear friend and radiologist, and we have a nephrologist and pediatrician also on the panel today. Unfairly, the conversations around AI in healthcare has been hijacked by radiology so far. Right? If everyone talks about CT, MR, X-ray, TB, lung cancer, breast cancer, that's an unfair. But what has happened is with the advancements in LLMs, people are now looking at different fields, applications in different fields. That's what we're going to hear today from different clinicians on the panel. One quick update, Dr. Mrityunjay, despite this kind of prior commitment to the important meeting, he agreed to be here. So what we'll do is first, we'll hear from Dr. Mrityunjay, the future, it's quantum ML, how is it going to change healthcare, probably ask him a few questions, and let him go and attend this meeting, and then we'll continue with the session as usual. Welcome, Dr. Mrityunjay.
Right, man from the future, that's something to live up to, and it's the afternoon session, as in any case. I think that's the session when energy is waning a little, right? So it's quite a task to get it up from there. But I think one of the ways to do that would be that what I'm going to discuss today is very important on the national as well as the international scene. Just to give you a little bit of context, the 2024 Nobel Prize was shown here when I just entered the auditorium, and it is for neural networks. The 2022 Nobel Prize for Physics was for quantum entanglement. And when you bring the two together, right, 2022 and 24, and some bits in each of those, then you get some certain parts of quantum machine learning, right? So that's important on the international scale, of course. In terms of the Indian kind of scenario, somebody was mentioning, I think Dr. Jadhav was mentioning about the 1,000 crore corpus fund for excellence, centers for excellence in AI. You all may be familiar with the National Quantum Mission, right? Some of you at least who have heard about it. That's about 6,000 crores, right, as it stands in the next 5 years, right? So putting them together, you can see the magnitude of support and interest that the government of India has as we speak today, right? So now the thing is, my talk will be a little bit, not even a talk, it's just a little bit of introduction on various parts of quantum machine learning. We'll go a little away from what the rest of the speakers have been speaking, of course, because I'll have to give a little bit of context as to what we are talking about, right? What is quantum machine learning? Why is the quantum side so useful? How does it come into the picture, right? So without further ado, so the OG, we have been talking about OGs quite a bit today, right? So the original game changers, I call them, not the gangsters necessarily, right? So in the quantum domain, these were the OGs, right? And so physics as we knew it till the 20th century was fairly done and dusted, is what at least Lord Rayleigh in England said, right? He said everything is found, right? और कुछ नहीं ढूंढना है, सब कुछ मिल गया है, all the laws are known, right? It's just about implementing them up to a certain accuracy, right? That was the claim. And that was around 1894. Actually, it was Michelson or Rayleigh, there is still debate on that. Anyway, so in 1905, there was a very well-known gentleman by the name of Albert Einstein, right? He produced or published 4 papers, right, which were seminal papers looking at relativity, looking at photoelectric effect. And in one of his papers, which is the photoelectric effect, he found that particles or systems in the level of very small scales, right? When we're talking about electrons or particles of that order, right? We find that nature is very different from what we have it in the classical sense, right? So many of you may have heard about this in the popular science talks, for instance. So the idea was that nature was no longer deterministic, right? So determinism means that you have a set of rules, you have a certain axiomatic premise, and then thereafter you can know exactly what the state of the system would be at any point in time, right? But in this case, there was a little more of element of chance, right? And a probabilistic element that came in. So these 5 people that are shown out here contributed to that understanding of nature at that fundamental level, right? I don't want to go into too much of a physics class here per se, but there are certain aspects which some of you may have come across, the uncertainty principle, for instance, right? No set of variables, there are certain complementary set of variables can completely define a system up to a certain uncertainty constraint, so to say, right? Then there is the idea of the wave-particle duality. There are some very paradoxical aspects, like a particle or a system can be both a particle as well as a wave, right? That's something which doesn't quite make sense. How can something be both a particle as well as a wave? But it just so happens that in certain contexts that is the case, right? Then you have things on quantized gravity and Schrodinger equation. Schrodinger equation, of course, tells you about time evolution, right? So just to kind of go over their works, because they have done some very seminal work, so to say. Okay, now there are 3 quantum revolutions that we must acknowledge, right? There are 3 revolutions which happened over the last 30, 40 years. The first revolution is that of quantum 1.0, right? So when the quantum domain was found in the early 1900s, the application for that started a little later, right? When Barwin, Shockley and others, for instance, started the transistors at their laboratories, right? In the year when India got its independence, right? 1947. And then I think they got the Nobel Prize in 56. Then you have the idea of the laser, right? We have all come across the laser, being utilized in many different areas. So that was also found roughly around 1958, if I'm not mistaken, yes. And there was also another one in 1960. Now, Quantum 2.0, what was that? Quantum 2.0 was when we started using something which Einstein called spooky action at a distance, right? Something जो बहुत ही ghostly किस्म का है, right? Something which you cannot explain in terms of things you understand from the get-go. So he called it spooky action at a distance. What does this mean? That if you were to use the information dynamics terms, if there are 2 carriers of information and they are correlated in a manner, whereby spatial separation doesn't change the correlation, or it still remains, that correlation still remains, right? That is something which is often called as quantum correlation or entanglement, right? So entanglement was something which Albert Einstein brought forth, right? And rather, he brought forth with the idea that he has to negate it, right? He didn't like quantum mechanics and this idea of chance. He said, God does not play dice, right? God does not play dice. There is something missing which we have to find as such, right? So there was a lot of debate on that. I don't want to go into too much detail on that as such. But that article that you see, Einstein Attacks Quantum Theory, is something which is quite popular, and some of you may have come across that. Okay, this is one of the experiments which were done for finding this idea of entanglement in the laboratory. This was the experiment which got this 2022 Nobel Prize as well, right? The idea was that these 2 particles that you see out there are interconnected or correlated in a very specific manner, and that can be detected using what is known as coincidence detectors. Okay? So again, that's a little too much of physics for the moment, but just to highlight the importance of this. And quantum entanglement has been found in labs. So you see this very interesting shape on the right-hand side. So there are different specks of light that have hit the screen there, right, which compose that particular figure. And so each of those dots has a complementary dot in the other figure that you see. So there are 2 circular figures, right? So the specks in 2 of them are complementary to each other, and they have this connection, this interconnectedness, which is important, the correlations, so to say, right? And that is a resource which is used in quantum information, right, which we'll be coming to. So now, when quantum entanglement was found, there are a few things that were very interesting and exciting, right? So one was, well, some of you may recognize that scene from Star Trek, right, which is that of, anyone? What is happening in the scene from Star Trek? Teleportation, right? So the idea was that somebody, can vanish from someplace, right, and appear somewhere else, right? So that was very fascinating. Now, quantum entanglement happens to give you a way to do quantum teleportation, right? It's not quite what Star Trek had in mind, right? Unfortunately or fortunately, I would say, but it is what it is, right? And so there are many different things that we can do with this idea of quantum entanglement and the resources that the quantum systems get to us, right? For instance, quantum cryptography, right? When we have to send encoded information across vast distances, right? Recently we had a project by ISRO and a few other Chinese universities as well on that side, and then American universities towards the west, that have been trying to see how we can send encoded information across vast distances on the surface itself, as well as from the surface to satellite, so to say, right? So quantum entanglement, what it does is that it helps us in connecting very different parts of the world. It is something that connects vast distances, as I said in the definition itself. Also, quantum systems have something which is known as superposition, right? Superposition means that one system can have multiple states at the very same time, right? What it helps in is that instead of, let's say, 2 bits, 0 and 1, right? You can have something by the name of a quantum bit, right? Which is alpha 0 plus beta 1, which is alpha, beta are some numbers, right? So in principle, it can be much more than just 2, right? So I'm not going too much on that. There are a lot of ways in which entanglement can be manipulated, they can be broadcast, can be controlled and distributed as well, right? Now this is an interesting slide because this is where quantum computing as a field kind of came into being, right? With these people who have been shown here. The first one is Holevo. Holevo bound is basically the amount of information a quantum system can send, which is more and above its classical counterpart, right? It is basically a bound of sorts for the quantum information efficiency over its classical counterpart, so to say, right? Then you have Benioff's quantum Turing machines. There are Turing machines that were found which have the quantum side ingrained in it, embedded in it. Feynman, Richard Feynman, you all must have heard about him, of course, in some context or the other. He basically, in one of the conferences in 1981, spoke about how different quantum systems can be utilized for information processing. There is something by the name of no cloning theorem, right, which is basically that a quantum system cannot be cloned, right? That's a very interesting fundamental result. And this gentleman, I had the privilege of interacting with him myself, David Deutsch. He's the first, he built the first universal quantum computer in 1985, right? So he's one of the very well-known kind of figures in this area of research, right? And so I've shown on the right-hand side what I've already mentioned, which is superposition as such, which is you can have multiple states, right, at the same time for one system, right, which is a very important resource. And then you can also have quantum computation using the correlations that we were discussing about, right? So I'll be expanding on that a little bit. So the question is, what is quantum 3.0, right? So the idea is that if you can integrate, right, these two very important areas of research, which is that of quantum computation and machine learning, right, then you get something by the name of quantum machine learning, right? Now the point is, how do you do that, right? So if I were to ask you, what are the different elements that are important in machine learning as such? I mean, the basic kind of elements that we need. Data, right? Anything else? The computation process, right? The different elements that help with the transformations and the computation process, right? So primarily those two, right? So we basically have data, right? And we have the computation methodology, the elements, the transformative kind of operations, right? Now, quantum computation and machine learning comes in 3 definite ways, right? One is if you have what is known as classical data, right, but a quantum model, right? What does that mean? That if you were to have the machine learning analogs or machine learning protocols that you have, right, and you were to make it into a quantum computing analog, how do you do that, right? So there are different kinds of gate operations we often do in classical computing, right? So there are analogs of that in very specific ways which have been developed for algorithmic purposes, right? For instance, Grover's algorithm is a very well-known one, Doore's algorithm is another, and so on and so forth, right? Then you have something by the name of quantum data itself. The data itself is represented as a quantum system or a state, right? So that is quantum data, but a classical model, right? You can also have that. And the last one is what? If it was classical data and classical model, does it make any sense? Is it anything new? Not quite. So what is that? Quantum data and quantum modeling, right? So if you have, for instance, adversarial networks, right, or various kinds of neural networks as well, which are quantum in nature in the modeling, as well as data which is represented in terms of quantum systems, then you have something by the name of quantum data and quantum modeling, right? So we'll come to that a little bit, just touch upon that. So quantum machine learning, right? So all of this is what I just mentioned, more or less, right? Quantum enhanced machine learning is often for the scenario where you have classical data and quantum modeling, right? So an example has been given for QML out there, right? So you have data encoding. Now data encoding is done in terms of a spinner. A spinner, I'm not going to the mathematics of that. It is something which is used for quantum system representations, right? So if you want to have data encoding with the spinner, there are ways in which you can extract features from that, right, in a very definite manner. For instance, a subsection of the features using projective measurements, right? You can project a certain quantum system into a basis of different quantum states, so to say, right? And thereafter get some information from that. You can also have, in between you have the quantum model, which is the transformation that you undertake in the quantum sense, right? So you have some kind of gate, so there are many different kinds of gates that can be used. Then you have the measurement, which is done. Now, as some of you may know, in quantum systems, till you measure the system, right, there is the probabilism that is very much present, right? But as soon as you measure the system, what happens? Let's see, is there any quantum enthusiasts here? It changes, but it kind of assumes one definite state, right? It has a multiplicity of states, and as soon as you measure it, there is one state that it collapses into, right? That's the idea. So the useful information has to be got from the measurements, right? It cannot be in the superposed state, because superposition means that the multiplicity of states are still existing, right? So basically at the end you have these decoders or measurement units that are utilized in different systems. You have different kinds of measurement units, right? So optical systems, superconducting systems, and so on and so forth, right? So we're not going to that all that much. And then finally you have something, you have many different kinds of formalism. So you have the QSVM, right? Support vector machines. In that you have transformations, for instance, mentioned in the middle rectangles, right? These are again unitary transformations that have different parameters that have been embedded with the phi. You see the phi there, right? The phi, and the idea is very simple actually. So what does a support vector machine do, technically, fundamentally? Can we talk about dot products or distances? Classifies in what way? Like, I mean, what is the... So you see, in the middle, there are two rectangles, x and z, with the parameters x and z, right? So there is a interrelated kind of transformation that happens, right, which is contingent on the value of x and z in that case, right? So there is a way in which the support vector machine part of it is undertaken by the unitary transformation on the quantum side, right? So that's an important aspect. I think more or less others we have covered. This is something which is quite involved, so I'm not going into too much detail on that. It's the support vector machine again, and this is an actual implementation of what is called a trapped ion quantum computer, right? The idea is these gates that you see, the pink ones, are rotation gates, right? So there are three axes, x, y, and z. So there are different kinds of angles by which you can transform or you can rotate a certain quantum bit, carrier of information. And there are some, you see these transformations that are connecting to different lines. These are called control operations, right? So when you have, let's say, 0 on the first wire, nothing happens on the second one, and 1 if you have on the first wire, there's some definite transformation that happens on the second one, right? So you don't have to go into too much on math. The idea is this, what you're seeing here in the mathematical side is being represented above, and there is a projective measurement. There is a distance aspect of it which is being found between something which is represented by the x prime, you see the x prime on the top, right, and an x on this side, right? So these are different, these are not the same, right? So there is a way in which the distance, so to say, is found in terms of the information carriers, right? I'll just quickly go over the quantum neural networks. We all know about the basic structure of a classical neural network, right? So in the quantum neural network, you have these unitary transformations, right? So U1, U2, U3, these are all quantum unitaries in this case, and they are used in a cascade manner. Now, it's very important to understand that in quantum logic, there is something called as non-commutativity, right? Non-commutativity. It's not that the ordering is very, very important. right? The way in which you make the ordering is extremely crucial. And so you see there's a very definite order. If I were to change that, right, there are many different scenarios and results that you will get from that if you were to kind of play around with those unitary, so to say. Okay, and then you have things like the nearest neighbor model, right? We all know about nearest neighbor model. The idea is that you can again compute distances, in this case with something known as the control swap gate, right? What is a control swap gate? What is a swap gate? Okay, swap, I mean the word swap, it changes, it brings one to the other and the first to the second one, right? So in this case what happens is you basically take one as your control, right? And then you swap the other two, alpha and beta, right? Now the alpha and beta are basically what you're finding the distance between, essentially, right? That's the carrier of the information you're requiring in the QKNN model, right? But that's not enough. After you have found the distance, you have to do something known as the minimum distancing or minimum distance finding, which is done by the Grover's algorithm, right? You can find the minimum in a set of values using something known as the Grover's algorithm. I'm not going to do too much on that because it will be a lecture in itself. Quantum random forest, I'd rather go to the interactions, that's going to be more helpful. And finally, we have various different kinds of modeling or protocols essentially, right? So I currently have been looking at QSVM, QNN, which is quantum neural networks, and a little bit of QC as well. There are many others that you can see here, which is to do with quantum clustering, quantum autoencoders, right? So the idea again is, how do we change the representation of the state as well as the transformations, right? And the efficiency and the speed up that happens because of that is primarily because of the state space expansion, right? As well as the methods of parallelism. What is parallelism? Anyone? Parallelism is when you can do multiple things in parallel, right? There is a parallelistic aspect to it, right? So if you were to be able to do that with quantum systems, that can help in computation purposes, right? So I'll leave it at that, and I'm happy to kind of discuss that.
So just a couple of questions, right? Excellent kind of presentation. I feel more intelligent than now, 10 minutes ago. It all looks great. Like it's powerful. It can handle a lot of data. It's secure. Today, one of the biggest bottleneck is the availability of compute and cost of compute.
Yeah.
Do you think it will get better with application of quantum ML, or is it still going to be much more expensive than what we are looking at today?
Is this working?
Well, the long and short of it is no, not really, right? Because I don't want to be one of those very over-optimistic proponents of anything whatsoever. The idea is that with quantum systems, unfortunately, there is something known as decoherence, which is that quantum systems lose their quantumness, right? Quantumness, because of correlations the system develops with the environment, right? So in a way, it's very important to protect the system as such, right? So that is done by many different ways, with temperature, with pressure, various aspects on that, as well as algorithmic ideas as well, like decoherence-free subspaces in mathematics that we utilize, right? The point being that to make a simple quantum computer, okay, let me ask you, how many qubit systems do you think in India we have as such today, as we speak? Can you make a guess? So I'll give you a kind of threshold, basically, idea, so that you can peg that based on that, right? So 1,000 qubits makes a proper fault-tolerant quantum computer, right? That is said to be one of the marks. When if we cross 1,000, right, then we can have what is known as fault tolerance, right? How many do you think in TIFR Mumbai? There's another group working, so I'll not mention that. TIFR Mumbai, one of the premier institutions. What is the limit we have reached till now? Any ideas? Any guesses? Yes.
I think we operate in multiple choice.
Okay, multiple choice questions. Okay, let's go by orders of 10. 330, 300, 3000.
3 looks like.
Yeah, so we have only 3 qubit quantum computers till now, right? They are not even quantum computers per se, they are just computation systems which kind of does certain operations, so to say, right? In the West, in the US, we have 150, 180 that what I have, but we are still very far from 1000 qubits, right? So the point is that it is very difficult and it's not going to help. But having said that, IBM, you all are familiar with IBM's work. they have something known as quantum experience. Right? You all can kind of go to the website and you can actually do calculations on a quantum computer. Right? You can schedule tasks on a quantum computer. So if we can have quantum machine learning with remote sourcing, like cloud computing, for instance, there could be a way in which things can be done better, potentially. Yeah.
Thank you. Just one quick question before I let you go. When do you see this coming mainstream, right? Like the CNNs, LLMs, transformers, GANs. When do you think it will be mainstream? Again, rough numbers, 5 years, 10 years, the quantum number coming mainstream.
Well, on the theoretical side, I think people have already been working on some of them. So I would say that the theory-wise, there is already work on that. But when I was showing you the trapped ion qubit quantum computer, that is still not a widespread thing. There are still very selected cases where it's happening, right? So I would say, at least 3 to 5 years to kind of get significantly ahead, at least, right? But theory-wise, we are kind of going fairly quickly and in a sure way. Yeah.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you very much. I think next I will invite Dr. Tarun to talk about his work in the area of nephrology. He had a flourishing career. In fact, he's still practicing nephrology. Unlike me, just quit radiology and moved to the industry completely. And he has joined the industry. Let's hear from him about what he's doing in this field.
Thank you so much, Dr. So, I'm almost leading off the practice as well myself. So, my name is Tarun Kaushik. I'm currently working as a medical writer for Fresenius Medical Care. This is a company which is a market leader in dialysis field. Patients who have kidney failure, they get dialysis. And overall, in the world, they have around 300,000 patients in their center who undergo dialysis every week in about 50 countries and about 4,000 clinics. India is a very small part of it. We just have around 30 clinics in India that's expanded, but at the same time they manufacture the hardware for dialysis as well, which is almost every machine you see. So disclosures, unlike everybody here, I'm not an AI expert or a data scientist. I'm just a physician, kidney specialist. Consider me as an end user of all of your work. All the work I'm going to show here is done by colleagues and collaborators within this big team, and I'm just looking at it. So quickly, what is dialysis? A common question asked from almost everyone is when kidneys fail, it's called chronic kidney disease. Sorry to be gross, you pass urine, you pass excess water and toxins in the body. If kidneys don't work, they start to get accumulated. Kidneys also produce certain hormones called erythropoietin. These hormones go and stimulate the bone marrow and produce red blood cells called hemoglobin. We have the imbalance of vitamin D and bone metabolism, making you prone to fractures. And there is a very high mortality associated with it, particularly more so in India. We are doing worse than a lot of cancers due to heart diseases and strokes. Interestingly, 22% of our 1.4 billion population in India is at risk of developing kidney disease. That's very conservative government estimate. Those people who have diabetes, overlap of diabetes and hypertension. So it's coming close to home very soon. So what can be done in kidney failure? Again, in terms of prevention, we are still at a very nascent stage. So if we find early stages of kidney failure, such as dietary changes, lifestyle changes, and of course medications to slow down progression. Then we give hormones, injections like erythropoietin, the one kidney produce normally, to stimulate the bone marrow to produce hemoglobin. Most important thing about EPO is that this hormone is that if you require very high dose of erythropoietin to maintain a certain level of hemoglobin, that makes you more prone for developing heart disease and strokes. In advanced stages of kidney failure, you require dialysis. Dialysis is nothing but a process of filtering your blood out of toxins. This is dialysis circuit. You see so the blood comes from patient's body. We run it at a flow rate of around 400 ml per minute. We run it through a filter or a dialyzer where the toxins are filtered out and the blood is returned. So this process happens for 4 hours, 3 times a week. So the patient comes and gets attached to a dialysis unit machine for 12 hours per week. And that's where all the data is collected in terms of their multiple vital parameters, blood parameters. Now modern machines are able to analyze a lot of blood parameters as well and other various hemodynamic measurements which can happen. So this is what happens across a semi-permeable membrane, primarily diffusion to the blood. So access for hemodialysis is the most important aspect of the treatment, in which the blood is removed from the patient, runs through the dialyzer, and then it goes back to the patient. Just imagine if you can't take the blood out of somebody, then you can't give them effective dialysis and cannot remove toxins. So what we do is we connect one artery to a vein in the wrist or in the elbow, and then the vein gets bigger and bigger. Eventually, it's big enough to have good blood flow, effective blood flow for 12 hours per week. But the problem is when this vein continues to get big, it may become aneurysmal, it may become very big in size, it may get narrowed up like a blood clot in it, or it can just get stenosis or blocked in future. So it's very important that we monitor this lifeline of the patient on dialysis. So that's where the monitoring, access monitoring, hemoglobin assessment, EPO monitoring is all comes into play. That's what makes it important for us to adapt these machine learning models and all sooner than the other fields of medicine. This is how it looks like in real life. There's one needle which is taking out the blood, and other one is putting it back in while the patient is on dialysis. It's called AV fistula. There's another form of dialysis. It's called peritoneal dialysis. It's a very rudimentary form of dialysis, as one may call it, but it's quite effective as well in the source poor areas. So there's always in medical circuits where people are not very AI savvy, they say, is there an exaggerated promise of AI in healthcare? And there was a lot of articles keep coming out in various medical journals. But I believe dialysis is still a great success story with the use of tech in beds, providing a bedside care to the patient. So the main challenges in the kidney care is the impact on patients' quality of life. These patients have to come 3 times a week to get dialysis. And then we add on the dietary restriction as well with various, based on their blood tests and their medical history. So this is a very prominent US blogger or writer. She once mentioned dialysis does not make patients well, it simply postpones their death. Well, in long run we are all dead, but we're trying to make it better in terms of quality of life, and in which technology is playing a significant role on what we are trying to do, particularly so in India. So there are a lot of levers to improve hemodialysis patients, but on the right hand side, I can say data science, algorithm and AI models are playing a significant role. So most of the models, algorithms in renal world, which I am using or planning to use in very near future, in India it's happening in the rest of the world, is based on the mathematical modeling, because it's based on the known physiology, and it builds mostly on the dynamical system theory and uses differential equations. It doesn't need that much of data, and the strength of this modeling is that it's explanatory, unlike AI, and weakness is that one needs to understand the physiology very well to be able to implement this. So we've been successful in understanding physiologies in some aspects of human body. So this is an international portfolio among various Fresenius Kidney Care centers across the globe. So we use advanced benchmarking tools, then prognostic reasoning tools, and as well trial systems. And again, therapy management models like ACM, which is anemia computation modeling, which will help us in deciding the erythropoietin, the hormone dose, and how much hemoglobin we can attain with that. And we are using other models such as patient-reported outcome models, PROMs we call them, because now suddenly we are realizing that what patient feels is also an important treatment outcome rather than just survival and morbidity on that treatment. So in US, my colleagues are using mainly at the moment social work and dietitian activity scores. In dietitian activity scores, we provide them information and scoring system based on 30 to 40 dynamic patient data which come out weekly, and they can decide about their physical well-being as well as diet recipes, what they can eat and what they can't eat. And also the prognostic reasoning tools and trial systems. We are using AV fistula risk scores because it's a lifeline for that fistula, that blood source of the patient. Then finding out which patients who are coming to dialysis in hospital can do one at home. Then one most interesting one is imminent hospitalization risk. So this tool is coming out quite handy in terms of patient management, and it gives you a kind of a red light for a patient when they see the overall data set changing towards imminent hospitalization on a relatively stable hemodialysis patient. So now the trials are being published out of AI in nephrology journals. So this was a randomized controlled trial recently came out. So in which they use a therapy assistant software combined with physiology-based mathematical model to decide about erythropoietin, that hormone dose, to attain a certain range of hemoglobin. And it showed that we were able to reduce the erythropoietin, that hormone dose, significantly based on these models. And the variation in hemoglobin was much less. We could attain a range between 10 to 11 grams of hemoglobin during the period of research study. You see in the green side is intervention group compared to this purple looking color is standard of care group. And you see the erythropoietin dose is consistently low throughout the study. Similarly, we use vascular access failure, meaning AV fistula failure. So the previous model, we are at the verge of implementing it in Indian clinics as well. And similarly, this vascular access failure model is being planned to be implemented in pilot clinics in India. So it gives us up to 80% accuracy in deciding about risk of fistula failure in the future. Similarly, there is a smartphone application being developed in which you take pictures of the aneurysmal fistula and it gives you a risk of aneurysmal rupture or worsening. Then e-stethoscope application has been developed by my colleagues in Singapore, in which you put an electronic stethoscope over a fistula and it can work out probability of that stenosis being present. It's very bedside. Yes, and this is something I admire this part of the use of technology is advanced benchmarking, because we have a high mortality in our patient group. In India, there's a paper recently published which shows that 30% of the patients on dialysis die at 6 months, which is pretty bad, worse than a lot of cancers. There are a lot of factors in India, but overall it's not that great either. So what this model does is, for a clinic level, so this is Singapore, all the clinics in Singapore, they worked out the 2-year mortality, and the diamond part is there, that active forms which are there in that region. And this is one of the clinics in which the score has come out. The red bars show the correctable factors in that clinic, and it has been now kind of proven with beyond doubt that if you correct these red bars, which are a lot of correctable factors for patients, your 2-year mortality in that particular clinic group comes down significantly. So I think it doesn't get better than this for a nephrologist if we can predict this. So why do we do this? Mainly for personalized care. We can't just give everybody a medium-sized shirt and ask them to wear it and be happy with it. And also value in terms of cost. Efficiency of the system is as important because healthcare is getting expensive by the day. So with that, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Dr. Tarun. You just confirmed what I always believe, that the other fields of medicine are doing a better job than what radiology is doing. Thank you. So now, I will invite Dr. Aarti. So personally, have seen Dr. Aarti present to other clinical doctors, colleagues, a workshop on how to use ChatGPT for clinical and research use. Right? It's kind of like we are seeing the industrial use, we are seeing the future. Now we see how is it so powerful that we can use it in the everyday clinical practice and probably for research uses. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Vasanth. And thank you very much to the audience. I have realized in the last two talks, especially when Dr. Mittal started and then he went on to do quantum physics, it took me back to 21 years back when I wrote my entrance examination for medical science. So though I had maths, I had physics. When I opened the paper, I would only do biology first, followed by chemistry and then physics. And in the physics also, if by the difficult ones I leave and calculate at the end of 2.5 hours, am I becoming a doctor? Yes, that's enough. No need to try the rest of it. So the quantum physics and the equation that we showed, but now again after 21 years, why having evolved into a healthcare science and being the last point of care, science was based on physics and many other things, and we have Dr. Tarun here, who then said technology is also important when it comes to, but finally, what is best for nephrologist if the patient lives and then each patient lives. So again, the final point of care comes to the one who receives it. And we being humans, each one of our near and dear ones are the ones who needs to get a culmination of all this, the best of technology, the best of healthcare, and the best of science, and the best of AI to actually treat them. So I start my presentation, and the way I would put it is that why after 21 years, having gone vertically up into more specialized areas, after doing pediatrics, I did pediatric gastroenterology, then did pediatric liver specialization and liver transplantation, but why I still come back to this, because this picture haunts me all the time. Wherever I go, people are waiting like once a month. We go to an outreach clinic in a remote area, and mind you, remote area is Chandigarh, remote area is Rohtak, remote area is Sonipat. It's not very far from areas. Patients wait there for us to come once a month to just talk to them for 5 minutes, and they suffer the rest 29 days because there is so much of a lack of specialized care that they don't get it, and hence is a migration to larger healthcare. So how I first had AI in my mind is that how do we reach out to this population? All of them stand here, all of them, for example, may take dialysis, For example, if I say, because we've heard about it, they are the ones who take dialysis, but there has to be somebody who tells them, each one of them, okay, this is the correctable factor in you, this is the correctable factor in you, this is the correctable factor, so that we get the utilization of care best. Utilization is there, but there is financial hardship. AI should come here. Why today, in today's world, when we can just pick up a phone and call anybody, people in the space, people here, there, whatever, but we still can't reach out to those people by AI. Do they really need to take buses and trains and autos and metros and get a phone number and use Google Map? Use Google Map to reach us, but how can we not reach them? So that is where it is important, and why should doctors be the ones who has to now stand up to it is because if I stand here, if I stand in a government hospital, if I stand in a primary health center, or if I stand in the most quaternary care center, the learning which I had for the last 18 years will remain with me. I just need to give it to somebody who needs it, be it a computer screen, be it my typing, be it listening to somebody, be it writing drugs, but the person on that side, all of them should have the same standard of care. So the standard of care is not being maintained, even though we have a very fantastic healthcare system in the country which comprises of both social healthcare as well as private healthcare. You go to the UK, you can't get an ultrasound today, because they have NHS. You go to the US, one ultrasound is costing 10 times higher, and you're not easily going to get it written. Here you go to an outside private medical clinic and say, can I get an ultrasound? No doctor is needed, you can get it. Please, you can pick up who has chronic kidney disease, the radiologist will see and send you to one. So this is a very beautiful healthcare where we need to set it up as utilization of AI in places where it will fit into the existing healthcare. We do not need to make a new healthcare. So having been expertise in pediatrics, I still believe that both pediatrics and adult healthcare must, and when they use AI, it must be rooted in ethics, which is always a human contest. It must be rooted in expertise, and it must have exclusivity to what it is treating. So that is how the learning, the large-scale learning models and the smaller ones and retraining are the ones which help. So when you go to the traditional, as we said, the traditional AI, the convolutional neural networks, they basically had image recognition. That is why the first person to come out of radiology didn't even hear of AI when it had already come out. Is because they started doing imaging and say, okay, you have brain hemorrhage, you have cancer, you have this. But now the problem is, everybody knows they get a CT scan within 10 minutes, they'll know, okay, you have this, this and this. But who gets treatment, how they get it, do they get it in a standardized form is still. So when the traditional ones came, it said that of course you need large data models to teach them. And if you want to have any change in the research practice, any change in the practice of medicine, it needs to be retrained, which again involves a lot of money and of course cannot be put into generalized data sets. So when that happened, the new ones came which had a more generalized learning, can have finer retuning the next time, and of course will then adapt to the changes. For example, today I feel I treat or maybe 80% of the children with liver failure survive with their own liver without needing a transplant, but maybe 10 years back, only 10% will need it. So what happened between 10 and 80%? Science improved, you have new drugs, you have new formulation, you have new researches. People on the West talk to the people here, and people everywhere, doctors talking the same language. So things improved. Do we think that those things would have easily improved? No. So when the visual learning models came, what they did just not the images, but as well as a text written by the people. As you know, we saw the pictures of all your physicists and the scientists who came there. All of them, whatever they've written, researching for a younger person like me who was born in 1985 when the first quantum computer was made, I think that is what I heard. Yeah. So the first quantum computer was made and I was born, so there were doctors much before that. What they have already talked about, cholera, what they have already talked about, typhoid, what they have already talked about, tuberculosis. Today I am not expected to read everything and then keep up with the medical research now also, new diagnostics, new technologies, and then tell how am I going to treat the patient. The patient is going to be here till then. So I need to get updated immediately in a form which I can also retrain. Now, every year there are 5 junior doctors who come under us. How do I train them? Do I tell them go back the way 50 years people were reading, you read? No. But how will things improve? They will only improve when the textual information got summarized fast with the use of AI, and then an automated documentation also. Manuscript writing, dissertation writing, if we do the same thing used 1 year, in that 1 year we can do many other things. So AI will help in that. Does not mean AI is going to treat the patient. AI is going to treat the patient based on your information encoded into it and then understanding the system. So however we understand there are various domains ever increasing before, just not radiology, but everything that we do. The most important when it came to what the VLMs did was precision medicine. So it integrated what the research or what the conceptual things about the disease was, what is there a variability in that, and then comes out with your inputs, your notes, understanding your languages as well, to say, I do think this looks like this, however this could be this, however this could be this. So the doctors, even the junior doctors, got supported by a factual documentation that happened, and of course, support clinical decision making, who will go for transplant, who will not, who has what kinds of rates of living, survivability or not, and the workflow automation. By workflow automation, it means that how can somebody go from one place to the other, automating all the systems. They will only happen when the same standard of care is being practiced. So when the large learning models came, what happened is clinical documentation became easy because there's a lot of medical legality, there's a lot of medicine-based, evidence-based medical care which is needed. Evidence-based will come when you have to have 50 guidelines for one disease. How do you integrate it? You integrate it based on your patient data, you integrate it based on what are the clinical guidelines and make a documentation. Along with that, if I have to start talking to a patient from saying, what is your name, what is your age, what is your date of birth, I write today's date, and this is what will happen in many of the primary health centers. Why should a doctor be wasting the time writing the demographics? That can easily be done by anybody. More so, just not this, how long do you have fever? Is it high grade? Is it low grade? Does it come down? Is it intermittent? Anything else? Do you have jaundice? Do you have cough? Do you have this? Do you have that? You know the history takes how much time? 45 minutes. When you pass your medical school, the only thing after 5.5 years they expect you to do is at least take a history. Think about when, I'm not sure, the engineers go out of this, engineering college, that 4 years they're supposed to make something or run some programs or run some companies. Doctors are expected to at least make a diagnosis or a differential diagnosis, not even a diagnosis. Just ask appropriate questions and take a history and you reach out to projected differential diagnosis. Treatment is not even there. But when you come to the healthcare, you also go, even the chief medical officer of a secondary healthcare center is just an MBBS. How is he expected to give you policy decision making when his own training did not go through this? And there is where is non-uniformity of care. The non-uniformity of care has come because everybody who's at the last step of delivering healthcare is not trained to that level. Can they be trained? Can there be so many doctors? Can there be so many specialists? No, it will change the economic and the structure of the country. So what we can do is, if I am a specialist, but somewhere on that side is not a specialist, he can talk through AI, he can be trained through AI, and it should be not just one-to-one, it is just an open model. Please learn it, go ahead and help them. So that is what I meant by my ChatGPT. Why is this a GPT has come in? Now, for example, just 6 months back, I was told to, why don't you use ChatGPT to make a customized algorithm about pediatric diarrhea, which is loose stools in children, because it has many diseases. Then I gave ChatGPT some hints, some questions as if I'm a patient, and the answer it gave me appeared like, what is this? To other people, when they Google, they may feel like, oh, they're giving us this and this, but actually, what it gives you today is not the one which you want your near and dear ones to be treated like. It gives you fancy names because you're not into it. For example, even if Dr. Mithilya would have just reverted all his slides, I wouldn't know. I would still feel that everything is right. So that changes is what is required for AI to make healthcare better. It has to enhance the healthcare. So this is what I was telling you, that every time that we have to come, there's a person who comes to a specialist doctor, traveling thousands of miles sometimes, wasting thousands and lakhs of money, going to one doctor next, because there is no standard of care. And finally what he needs is just to sit down. If I have to sit down and ask, why can't I make a model where anybody just clicks it, he'll ask the right questions, the right answers. So what I need to do, I just need to train the 18 years of training that I have into a GPT so that you answer right. And then validate it into the clinical surroundings, and like-minded 15 doctors of the same specialty can sit down, make a model which runs for 80% of the population. 20% will still need to go a little further, but 80% of the population is served. So, hence we say that when we have a patient-centric and a personalized care, it will only come when a doctor is supported by many other assistants in terms of reading the papers, in terms of summarizing the paper, in terms of somebody taking the history but he getting the summary of it, utilizing the thing and documenting the thing. That is how the AI is going to do. For example, I'll tell you, liver disease by the name of Wilson's kills thousands of children every year. So from last 10 years since I entered into pediatric liver, I have been listening, seeing these patients, some of them live, some of them die, some of them come this, that. We keep telling ourselves, oh, now we have so much of experience with these liver diseases that by the look of it, I know which one is going to make it, which one is not. Because the look means I have understood, I know the history, I know the labs, I know the genetics of this, I know this. As a culmination of all this, I know, will you be okay with the drug? Will you be needing a transplant? Will you be surviving, will you not be surviving? And will your other family members get a disease because it is a genetic liver disease? But I know this, by the time the patient doesn't reach me, he has 3 siblings died in the last 5 years before he ever reached a specialist. So AI is going to tell us if we can make a model and say, okay, this is a Wilson's model, please enter your data, including imaging, including history, including the lab test, including what treatment you have taken and how are you till now, and we will tell you, the model will tell you you're low risk, please do this. Please reach out to a specialist in this much time. If high risk, please refer out immediately. That is what is going to help the general public. So when you do this, finally your healthcare will be served in the existing healthcare only when it is a multimodal integration. I do not believe it goes vertically up, it doesn't. The images still needs to be done, the CT still needs to be done. It has to be much more accurate, much more finer tuned. However, me talking to somebody, my thought process written down, my narration, the patient's narration, everything being summarized should be the only thing, and its integration with the research, its integration with the genetics of humans, everything has to be integrated together to be treated than one patient. And if you make a successful model, you automatically have treated all those similar kind of patients, and that what improves healthcare. So as the last mile where the patient just sits in front of me and asks, "बस एक बार ये बोल दो कि वो ठीक हो जाएंगे." You know, God, what we can give best, then we always tell them. We have been, I don't know which way to put it, but then when you have been bestowed with the responsibility of to be extremely careful, because the other person is going to listen to you. Take a drug, not take a drug, go here, go there, whatever. When you are doing that, you have to be supported by all the support systems so that he gets the care. So until unless doctors are the one who get up and do this AI and all of you behind them, caring for their last mile is always going to be difficult. And hence I believe from now on, there would definitely be, the more is an engagement between engineers and doctors and the clinicians, so actually are the ones treating them, a lot of new insights can easily develop. Thank you very much.
Thanks for sticking to the topic. I forget that the topic is about VLMs, LLMs, foundation models. Thanks for taking that up for me. Finally, we have Dr. Deva, and he's my fellow radiologist. We intentionally decided that we won't present any slides, we'll just talk about our experiences. I have a couple of questions to you. The first thing is, last year when we were discussing, we talked about the chest X-ray AI being deployed at large scale in AIIMS. It's 1 year now, we have had some learnings there. That's the first part of the question. The second part is, again, as we see here, the shift is actually happening, right? People are now talking about the AI, LLMs, foundation models being useful in other fields and giving more outcomes and benefits. A radiologist has been struggling, right? We are yet to figure out a viable commercial model for AI. What are your thoughts on both these, right? We are learning for the deployment, and what is different from last year?
Okay. Thanks, Vasanth, for calling me here. And yeah, last time we discussed about similar things, AI and other things. So we almost have this particular model of this radiograph for I think 1 year now. And now we started with some skepticism that whether it will work or not, because our requirement was we don't have enough radiologists to report those X-rays. The reason is we do some 1,000 X-rays in a day, and for any radiologist to do justice, they can't do more than 100 chest X-rays in a day. So you need 10 radiologists to report those 1,000 X-rays, which is not possible. We don't have that kind of bandwidth. We'll be wasting our resources in those kind of situations. So that's the reason we wanted that particular model to be to perform in a way that whether the chest X-ray is normal or abnormal. That's what primary purpose. And over a period of time, we realized that it can do much more than that. We knew that when we also installed this model, it can do better than that. But we wanted that, we were confident that it can only do this, the normal or abnormal binary classification of those X-rays. But over a period of time, we started believing it more strongly, because we have the X-ray with us, also the annotated X-ray which is generated by the model, and we know that it is picking up findings which is very subtle or difficult for even a radiologist to pick up, and so that belief has changed. And we, although we are not generating the report, we just do the annotation and up to the residents to see those annotations in report. But since we are believing it very strongly, now in few days now or in a few weeks now, we will be having auto-generated report from the algorithm, and it will be sent to the clinicians. So that is one change which has happened, just that belief has changed. And the other thing is that earlier we were doing it more in an academic exercise point of view. We did thesis, we did, Suvaranka sitting there is one of our thesis student who worked on AI, and he also he's also very keen on working on AI, I believe, and so now we are since we are have more belief in AI, now we want to make it more translation, product oriented. So now we have committed to few companies like GE Healthcare. They are also interested in investing in and to a collaborative kind of development. Not just that we are giving data and they are developing it. It's kind of co-development. Not that we are going to develop by codes and things, but it will be a joint effort. And we have initial discussions with Dr. Vasanth as well, with his company. So that is in very initial stage of discussion. So that will also be changed. What was your second?
Do you feel the ground is slipping for radiology?
I don't think so. But at the same time,
we are in the darling of the AI fund, AI money. You see, we go to pediatrics and nephrology.
oh, okay, slipping for territory of AI into other. I mean, I always worried about slipping of a territory to AI because AI is our challenger or a contester, and I still think that battle still we have that edge over AI maybe for the next 2-3 years or 5 years. Because the logical reasoning is the human logic reasoning is much better, whereas computation we can't even talk.
I'm kind of more focused on that. Do you think more money will flow into nephrology AI than radiology AI?
I think radiology will still be the biggest consumer of whatever it is because. I understand. Nephrology is more of data points related to blood work or the chemistry of blood and other things, but our input data will be of various kinds. We have 3D data. Even dermatology data is very, one-dimensional data, it's surface data. It is probably easier for the AI to consume data and perform accordingly. Whereas we have cross-sectional data. Every angle we dissect, we cut our body in terms of imaging is input data, and that goes across multiple modalities. Ultrasound will be different, will show it in a different way, MR will show it in a different way, CT will be shown in a different way, and even MR there are 10-15 sequences. Everything will show it in a different way. Everything is a different type of data. So in terms of complexity and other things, I don't think I believe radiology is probably the most easy.
Radiology is still unexplored.
I am not challenging any of this, but as of now, like ophthalmoscopy or ophthalmologist or dermatologist, or these are the areas where even pathologists, those are photographic data. Those are not cross-sectional data. Our data is something very different from others. So I still think, I believe that this is.
Congratulations on the recent government funding in this project.
Yeah, that's something which happened a few weeks before.
What are you doing with the team?
I'm not the owner of those. I'm just a part of that particular team led by our colleague Kritika, and I think the ministry believes that rather than giving it to a tech institute, they will definitely do a better job in terms of technology. But the felt need by the government for the country in terms of healthcare is probably envisaged better in a clinical setup with the tech support. So I think that's the reason they have given it to us. We are happy about it, and we have been partners ranging from private partners, IIT Delhi and others. So just we have started, so it will take some time. How it shapes in over a period of time, it's difficult to say, but we are very hopeful that it will take off well. And our core area of areas of interest currently is what nation is facing. We are not going to figure out something very sophisticated or something, like very basic things like chest X-ray, cataracts, vision, blindness. So these are the areas where there is need in the country. Not necessarily very sophisticated, not in terms of very high-end diagnostic or anything. We will probably concentrate more on the basic need by the masses of the country. That's our mandate. That's the mandate which is in the government, and I think that's what I will pursue.
So I think we are almost at time. One final round of kind of thing I want from everyone in the panelists is that we have a few of those young people sitting here looking at us, what they can do and how they can be part of whatever we are doing. So I want every one of you to give 1-2 minute bite on how do you think, there are very few of them now, but the few of them who have stayed back, what they can learn from us, or how can they be part of this journey? What should we be doing now? Just a minute. Maybe I will start with Dr. Tarun to go to the next. Dr. Aarti and close it there.
So what me as a doctor or my colleagues should be doing now is looking at the data. So we are not at all data savvy in our medical practice. Only a few institutions are actually picking up the data of their patients. As well as if you come to the dialysis world, sadly Fresenius is the only company in the country at the moment who is taking live data out of the machines. And every machine can do that actually. And with the help of that data, only we can decide what are the data points we can work on. So if you don't have a basic stuff with the data, and nothing more can be done to help our patients. So that's the most important aspect.
Focus on data science
and good data.
Yes.
I just think last word to understand that identify a problem which resonates with you, you are tech savvy, identify that area, try to seek what technology can give answers to, try to partner with a clinician or a researcher where you can understand that your idea has a solution for the end user, which in healthcare is always the patient. The patient solution has to be patient-centric. The data are very important to make solutions, but always remember the solution is made for the patient. So, wherever the patient outcome has to improve, that area is always very important. Second thing, with the AI, always emphasize on the ethics of the outcome. Be very, very thoughtful of what implication it may have. And at the last, always try and make solution which gives solution to your own healthcare. Making a new thing, making a new company, getting that company to thousands of children or thousands of patients or people will definitely make the company a $1 million company. But that doesn't really help the healthcare. So you have to be very clear of which way you want to serve. If you want to serve the healthcare, make solutions which can be integrated with the healthcare. And the way Dr. Deva said is very true. Of course, the 300 crore should have gone to a tech company which makes it, but who to understand of there is nobody better than a clinical setting who will then identify their felt needs for the patients and then give it to them. So always make everything which is patient-centric.
So basically solution-first approach rather than a technology or product-first approach. Because sometimes we are so much fascinated with the technology. We build products, it may not be used on ground. We see a lot of that.
Yes. Medicine is an imprecise science. So there are variabilities all across. every patient, every human, everything is different, so you can't find an exact replica of the same genetic makeup or any physiology in another thing. So there is definitely a need of technology everywhere. If you just look at the radiology, it's not just diagnosis, the workflow, how to optimize the workflow, how to generate an image in a better way. Every process, there is scope of technology, and this is what needs to be done. For example, periodic ultrasound needs to be done. Okay, there is something in the colon, there is something in the... So, our thought process will be jumbled when you report something. AI can clean it and mention just the report, synopsis, and what needs to be done. But the guidelines or what the actionable points can be separated out, so it can format it cleanly and present in a better way. I'm just pointing towards a simple problem of reporting. But radiology, across radiology, there are multiple other problems. So there is no lack of problems. Just that man said that we have to find that area which will make the eventual change in the management and it will benefit the patients. So that's what I would say. Thank you.
Thank you. I think we can keep on talking like this. I mean, we'll morning.
The AI should be beneficial to the hospital, should be commercially beneficial than otherwise. Because to maintain an AI backend team is expensive.
True. Like we have this altruistic vision of helping patients, helping outcomes. Somebody has to make a viable model.
To the techie and as well as to the patient, it has to be a synchronized model so that everybody's benefit. The benefit has to be converted into some kind of a patient-centric and monetary-centric aspect. Otherwise, no innovation is.
Correct. No innovation will be kind of made to production unless it's made viable by Sachin is giving me cold stares. Please close it out. It's already time. Thank you so much. Thank you for joining me. Thank you for everyone staying back. I think we watched for 10 minutes, but it was an excellent session. I think we will see you next year.
Thank you, everyone. This was a great session indeed. We have come to close of this third session. We'll start with a felicitation ceremony. I request Dr. Vasanth Venugopal to felicitate our esteemed panelists. We'll start with Dr. Devsenathipathy Kandasamy, Professor at AIIMS. Please put your hands together for our panelist. Next, we have Dr. Tarun Kaushik, Senior Consultant and Medical Director, Fresenius Medical Care, India. Our third speaker, Dr. Aarti Pavaria, Senior Consultant and Pediatric Gastroenterology, Amrita Hospital. Thank you, our dear panelists. I request Mr. Sachin Gaur to please felicitate Dr. Vasanth Venugopal. I request all the panelists to come forward for the group photo session.